I've decided to retire completely. I'm announcing my complete retirement right now.
Okay.
That's right, people watching.
Even the pod?
Yo,
Even
God,
the podcast?
yes. Are you kidding me? I may not make it to the end of this show.
Fair enough. All right. We ready to do this thing?
Sure.
We're live.
Hey, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to After Further Review. Mark
you can't hear that?
John Pelkey.
No, we can't. We don't
Can't hear any
get
music. Can't hear any music. Perhaps the people out in Facebook, YouTube, and or podcast land can, but we can't. But regardless, hopefully you can hear us right now. And we are very happy to do another evening show. I kind of like these evening shows, Johnny. I know.
Well, good for you.
Johnny is a little salty tonight for a variety of reasons, and I'm, for one, really looking.
Is that better? That just seems like this should be. This is my mood right here.
Yeah,
I should go with this look.
He's in a dark, salty mood, which we can all appreciate.
No good deed goes unpunished, Mark. Maybe the absolute truest adage ever.
No good deed goes unpunished. That is a pretty good adage. There's no doubt about it. And in your case, it applies vociferously. All right, we have a great show though. It's Friday. It's fantastic, fun football Friday, John.
Boy,
aren't you excited?
If there aren't enough reasons to be angry, it's fantastic, fun football Friday, which actually might be fun, Mark, when the Pac-12 starts playing those Friday night games. That's why I may come around on Fantastic Football Friday, because they're going to have a series of Friday night games, and some of them are pretty fun. And you know my love for Pac-12 football.
And that's the thing. College football's taken a hit with you a little bit this year because you haven't been able to stay up late when you have the house to yourself, pour yourself a nice scotch on the rocks or even neat and watch some Pac-12 football. And you haven't been able to do that this year, and that is added to your angst. And now, while you've been just donating the largesse of your talent, you've been asked to sacrifice
even more
a Saturday. Wow. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
all right.
Big Ten starting to play this Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, it's just tough.
It's
just tough. I'm so sorry. I hope to maybe this will alleviate your angst and pain and existential ennui tonight. I hope it does. It probably won't, but I hope it does. But it is a great show because we've got Derik Abbott again. And I like the idea of bringing Derik in and having him preview 3 big games every week, every Friday before the big weekend to see what he thinks about it. He actually studies tape, John Pelkey.
What?
He puts the effort in to actually study the tape, make a series of notes.
Does he think he's on a different podcast? Realizing as he should that not necessary?
Working late into the evening, into the early morning. This man is so much better than we are. Let's just put it that way. But before we get to him,
we set the bar relatively low.
The bar is pretty low. Before we get to that, let's go to our progressive trivia right now. We're looking for an NFL player, past or present. Here then are the clues. Did you happen to do a Facebook Live, John, to let people know it's a 6 o'clock show?
I did, and I still had Joe Conley still dialing in because I guess they don't do the spring forward, fall back thing there. And he said, it's time, isn't it time? Or something on that order. And I had to let him know that it was like an hour ago. He thought it was 6 o'clock our time.
All right. Well, he'll be.
Everybody should be caught up.
Hopefully. Played 10 years in the league, 10 plus years, I should say. Career numbers, 2,700 plus completions, 30,000 plus yards, and 150 plus touchdowns. And it has gone away, and it comes back. Led the league in completion percentage once, and all 4 years, his college team finished in the top 10. How about that? That's pretty fun for you, John. That's a good one. We'll go back. That's the second set of clues, so we'll lose that right now, and we'll go back to bring in Derik. Well, there's the other set of clues. Why not say it?
Just do them. Just do
the national championship. Well, there it is. All right.
This show's getting better by
Derik Abbott right now to it really is. We're going to talk a little Tua. We're going to preview 3 of the cooler games coming up this weekend, although there's a few actually that are emerging as kind of fun games to follow. Not bad. Not bad at all. Derik Abbott, once again, assistant coach for the Coast Guard Academy. former college football quarterback for the great Robert Morris. Derik, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
I'm good. Super excited. Thank you guys for having me on. And starting to get more decorations up in the office here too. Finally, it's not looking as plain as it once was. So we're making a little bit of progress. So the other coaches were giving me crap for it. So I had to get some decorations.
Okay, they're watching this, right?
I have no idea. I hope not. Because if I'm wrong, I'm gonna get fired.
All right, we don't want that. We do not want that. You're one of the few people that have a job these days, and we want you to keep it. So let's start out with Tua. He doesn't play this weekend. The Dolphins don't play. They have a bye. But boy, oh boy, Dolphin fans are beyond excited. They're excited about what Fitz did for their team thus far. They're 3-3. Their defense actually looks like it's close to elite at this point in time on some level. They did play the Jets last week. That's a major caveat. But this is a team that has finding an identity, and not only the players but the coaches and the entire organization seem ready to give Tua a shot. What are your thoughts? What are your initial thoughts as a quarterback looking at this guy? And what do you anticipate his first few games are going to be like?
I think this is a move that it doesn't happen if the two aren't very close. And from what everyone has said, that Ryan Fitzpatrick and Tua were very close, and Ryan understood the role that he was as kind of the father figure, taking him under the wing and kind of showing him the ropes. And Tua is naturally a very, very intelligent football player too. It's an interesting time, like I said, to make the move. They are, still in a divisional run as well, with Ryan Fitzpatrick playing out of his mind with big wins, like against San Francisco, who we're going to talk about in a little bit. But from Tua's perspective and going in, I think that you're going to see a lot of what you saw in college from him. So what you saw in college, the scouting report would tell you he was a very pinpoint passer. He works very well in a rhythm and timing throws. He works extremely well in the RPOs. So in the run pass option. So what that means is typically in a run pass option, you are keying one defender, and he is what we call the conflict defender. So if there's a slant route and then you have an inside zone or an outside zone going back the other way, you're really going to conflict the backside linebacker. If the backside linebacker flows with the run, Tua will pull it and throw the slant behind the linebacker. If the backside backer stays, he'll give the football. So he was extremely accurate in that. I think a lot of people want to try and compare him to Russell Wilson, and he's not that. He's more of a Drew Brees type, where he's extremely athletic in the pocket, moving in and out. He's not the scrambler that Russell Wilson is, but he could still drive the ball down the field on some of the dig routes and deep comebacks, and he can make all of the throws.
Let's ask the elephant in the room about Alabama quarterbacks during Nick Saban's run, Derik, is that they have not really translated well to success in the NFL. To your point, as far as the accuracy goes, he's probably the most accurate of all of those guys, the A.J. McCarrons of the world. We don't know about Jalen Hurts, obviously, but any of those guys. But to you, from seeing what you saw from him in college, what are going to be his biggest disadvantages, if there are any, to changing his game to an NFL game?
Well, I think the disadvantages kind of diminish with the scheme, because the offensive coordinator, Chan Gailey, has a spread offense background. And you are seeing now, and it's a common misconception that I think a lot of people still have, is that you have to conform, your quarterback has to conform to your system. And that's not always the case anymore. You're getting a lot of these guys that are top picks, that the offense and the program and the scheme is now conforming to them and their strengths. So you're seeing the progression of quarterbacks come along at a quicker rate. So that's why you kind of see the RPO game that's going to come up with Miami, just the same way that a lot of the concepts that Zach Taylor is installing with Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, is a lot of the 5-wide stuff, really playing into their strengths and what they can do. The biggest question for Tua is his health. Is he going to stay healthy? He had the hip surgery. He's had ankle issues. I believe he had a wrist issue in college too. So I think for him, the best way to stay on the field is kind of avoiding those big hits in a way that Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray, and you see guys like that avoid those. Sometimes Tua will take the bigger hits in college, and you don't necessarily want that at the pro level, because you'll have a pretty short career.
Mark, I believe that's what Nick Saban actually even pointed out, said he's going to have to learn that you can give up on a play from time to time, that it's sometimes the smart thing to do.
No doubt about that, and that leads to the question about Miami's offensive line, and will it give them the kind of protection that he is used to? And when I say that, Derek, it's the fact that we all know, and this is why I think Alabama quarterbacks under Nick Saban haven't done well, because they haven't been challenged that much during the course of their career. You look at the top quarterbacks in the NFL, they played for schools that had a lot of challenges, didn't have great teams. North Carolina State, Russell Wilson. All right, Cal for Aaron Rodgers. Miami of Ohio, for crying out loud. Ben Roethlisberger.
You say that with such disdain, Miami of Ohio.
Well,
Miami of Ohio. Good Lord. They don't even play. They play 8-man football, don't they? Good Lord.
I'm trying to make the point that they don't have great teams or great programs, and that's why these quarterbacks actually have a leg up, in my opinion, because they've had to face that struggle, face that pressure in college. Whereas, now we'll see what Joe Burrow does. He's from a big school, but most kids from the big schools, Darnold not playing very well at the moment. Obviously, previous Alabama quarterbacks. So that particular question, along with the Miami Dolphins offensive line, what's the realistic probabilities that all the wonderful things you outlined about his skills and what he can do can actually happen on the football field?
Well, I think they can if they stay within the structure of, like I said, the quick passing game, the rhythm throwing, getting the ball out off of a third or fifth step, and the play action stuff, really working kind of the intermediate game. I think that's where he really strives. And to your point, too, about big schools, you could really make the case about Carson Wentz as well, playing at the FCS level.
There you go.
I have to make up to the FCS level since I played against Carson Wentz my freshman year. Did not go very, very well for us. We got dubbed 52-0, and I lost my red shirt that game. So it wasn't the best going.
We're not bringing it up.
My one interaction with Carson Wentz was not a pleasant one. But you could make the same case for him, too, is playing at an elite school that you pretty much drummed everyone that you played and coming into a scheme and coming into the NFL where the speed is a lot different. But like I said, I think for Tua in Miami, staying within the scheme and the structure of their offense, doing a lot of the RPO stuff, really defining reads for him. So he's not trying to make full field reads, whether you're going to high-low a guy with an under and a dig or a climb route and a shallow, really defining the reads and making it a lot cleaner for him so he doesn't get fooled.
Yeah, I think a lot of those big school quarterbacks, they don't have to learn to throw somebody open. They throw to open receivers. And in the NFL, it's a little bit different. I'm going to ask you two questions, Derek, because Joe Conley has one. And I'm going to ask that one after I ask this question. And that is one of the adages about a rookie quarterback when you don't start him in the beginning and you start someone else is that, once you put him in, you can't pull him. Unless it's an injury situation, and with Tua, of course, that's always going to be something we concern ourselves with, but that you can't pull the guy out because that'll destroy their mentality in some way. That doesn't seem with a guy like Tua. He doesn't seem like a guy. He doesn't get too high, too low. He seems like a pretty solid guy. But what's your feeling on that? Because I've always thought that's incredibly limiting to say that and maybe detrimental to some of these young quarterbacks who perhaps should get some time on the field and then maybe some time to step away and look at the game from the sidelines after having played.
Well, like I said earlier, I think it's a really unique situation in Miami. You have a team that is in the running for a division. You have a great relationship between the starter and the backup and the rookie. So I think that there's going to be growth there. Typically, when a quarterback comes in later in the season in a situation like this, the team is usually 1-6, 1-5, really struggling, and the rookie quarterback really has to just tread water for the rest of the year. I think he has a really, really good support staff around him. The way that Brian Flores has structured the culture of that team and the understanding of what they're trying to do. I think, too, they want to see what they have in Tua. They saw Justin Herbert play extremely well earlier in the year, so they kind of want to make sure that they're right on this. Plus, the pick that they have from Houston could bump them up into the top 5 or the top 10. So if Tua does not work out and they don't like what they see, they could still have a potential top 10, top 5 pick because of the Houston pick. So there are still some quarterbacks at Justin Fields. Obviously, they wouldn't be in the running for a Trevor Lawrence because I think he's going to go number 1. But a Justin Fields, Trey Lance from North Dakota State, the kid from BYU, they want to see what they have initially before they go into this draft.
That makes a great deal of sense, and that leads to Joe Connolly's question. So we're going to ask you to do the impossible and to put your Dolphins coaching hat on and just say, knowing what you know, Derik, would you have made this change at this point in time?
Man, I think it's tough because of the way that Ryan Tannehill, old Dolphin quarterback, Ryan Fitzpatrick has been playing. Again, in the race for the division. But what has happened with Ryan Fitzpatrick throughout the year is the wheels kind of fall off eventually. So I think they're kind of doing this. They're kind of doing it kind of progressively and not letting the wheels fall off and them losing a game to a New England or something like that. And they're kind of just letting Tua just roll with it. So they're kind of getting ahead of the curve. I think that's the thinking here. I think I probably would have left Fitzpatrick in, but I think this is a good opportunity with the bye week for Tua to get some more reps in with the first team starters. So you could make the case. I like Fitzpatrick just because I like seeing all of his press game or post game fire. That's the sole reason why I would have kept him in.
And by the way, Harvard, you got to throw people open if you play at Harvard, and that's why he's had success. You got to throw people open.
You know, Flores is actually doing a Belichick here because Belichick always gets rid of his players 1 year too early when they still have value, and so Flores is benching him. You know, maybe a game too early, but we all know that in a game or two, the wheels are going to fall off, at least if every single other year of Ryan Fitzpatrick's career is indicative at all. All right, let's move to the games this weekend.
That's a trait, too, that we talked about in the last show about Belichick predecessors or his coaching tree. They try to be too like him. The Brian Flores and the Mike Vrabels are taking aspects from Bill Belichick without being Bill Belichick.
Good call. Outstanding call. And Flores, I love Flores. I love Vrabel. I think those are two fun coaches to follow. 3 games we're going to preview this weekend involves your favorite team, Derik, involves my favorite team, and involves a team that is your second favorite team and my least favorite team. Let's start with that one. See, and all 3 of these teams that we're previewing that I just described are on the road. The first one that we're going to look at. Need me
for this then? You don't need Jeff and I at this point, do you? Because it's just you two talking about your favorite teams. And, we're a game out. So just want to remind you, the Washington football team, a game out, people. Go ahead now. Talk about your favorite team, Mark.
We're not going to do that right now. We're going to talk about my least favorite team right now. And at some point in time, and you're right, John, the Washington football team is actually relevant.
Game out.
They're more relevant than the San Francisco 49ers, who are 3 games out of first place at the moment.
Got to break them up.
2.5 games out, yeah. Boy, how about that game last night? Unbelievable.
It was almost offensive at times. But can I say, before we get into this, I'm going to say something because we're not going to be able to talk about teams. We're going to say this. I'm going to say right now, I think Philadelphia Eagles win the East.
I'd like to see it.
I think they win the East.
I think David Jones runs like my dad in the Turkey Bowl.
Sorry, Joe Connolly, but if this will help you at all, your first guess in the progressive trivia is absolutely right. So,
wow,
I loved this one, and I am very, very sad.
You got a second set of clues early, so don't feel too bad.
He did.
Don't feel too bad about it.
So let's start with Seattle going to Arizona. Arizona has been sort of an up and down football team this year. I think there's a lot of the ceiling on the Arizona Cardinals is through the roof. Pardon that ridiculous pun. I love the Cardinals. I love what they're doing. I love where they're going. But Seattle, despite the fact that their defense is as leaky as any in the National Football League, has the one guy that can do anything. And that is probably the most clutch quarterback I've ever seen in my life. And the reason I say that is because he saves his best for the fourth quarter, for third downs, and everything else. And he just finds a way to win. He finds a way to find an open guy. He finds a way to gain yards. He's the best quarterback in the league, if you ask me right now, and one of the best of all time, if you ask me at this point in time. That's why I think Seattle's going to probably not have any problem with Arizona. What's your take?
Well, Seattle in the Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll era is undefeated at Arizona. The only game that Russell Wilson has ever lost in that building was the Super Bowl that I'm sure he loves to hear about all the time. That building gives him great memories. But he is pretty dominant in that building. The last couple meetings between these two teams have really gone back and forth. I think that we'll start with Seattle and their offense. They're a very simplistic passing game. Some of their concepts are really, really base concepts, running a lot of like high-low stuff with, like I said earlier, shallows and digs, some crosser stuff, and then really splitting the field in half and letting Russell Wilson pick a side, whether it's, double slants on one side and double hitches on the other, or a stick concept with a hitch, an out, and a go route. So they're very simplistic on offense. Really interested to see if they, like I said, continue to let Russell Wilson cook. I think that last week or 2 weeks ago when they played Minnesota, they kind of struggled throughout that game really to get anything going. And I think a lot of that had to do with, one, Minnesota controlling the ball, really running the ball, taking the air out of the game and not letting Russell Wilson get into a rhythm. Two, I think the weather had a very, very big factor in that game, not being able to throw the ball effectively. And three, really the biggest one is what Minnesota really did schematically on defense. They played a lot of cover 4 and cover 2 principles with 2 high safeties and really kept everything in front of them, really prevented the deep Russell Wilson moonball to Tyler Lockett or DK Metcalf. And I think that took away a lot of what, really stretching the ball down the field. And then he had to kind of make second reaction plays. I think that's something that Arizona really can try and do, especially with Budda Baker on the back end, who's playing out of his mind right now, creating a bunch of turnovers. I think defensively for Seattle, really not having Jamal Adams really hurts them still. You'd like to see that he gets back. I don't believe that he is going to play. I believe he is doubtful or out for this game. But his presence in the run game it was big, especially, in the first game of the year when they played Atlanta. His presence was felt. And that's something that they've missed. They do not have an elite pass rusher as well, that they struggle getting to the quarterback. So, I think Arizona's key is really don't let Russell Wilson get the ball last.
I want to ask because, obviously last time we saw the Cardinals, they looked pretty good against Dallas, but Dallas turned the ball over the Cardinals turned them over 4 times, but that was a big part of it. But to your point, what they really did well, because Kyler Murray was like 9 of 24, 9 of 25, did not have a great game, but they were able to run the ball over 260 yards on the ground for them. So do they have the enough of a running game to do what they did to Dallas and to do what Minnesota did actually to Seattle, slow Seattle's offense, keep them off the field? And what do you expect Kyler Murray's going to have to do? Because I can't imagine against Seattle that 9 of 24 for 140 or whatever it was is going to get the job done, frankly.
Well, yeah, like you said, the run game is going to be huge and they can really control the ball. I think your best defense is sometimes your offense, and not allowing your defense to be on the field when you do not have a great defense. So this is something that I think Arizona will really try and do. Not saying that Arizona has a bad defense, but to just keep Russell Wilson off the field and help them out is really, I think, that the key to the game. They're going to try and get DeAndre Hopkins one-on-one with some different matchups. Seattle will usually play their base cover 3 that they always have for the last however many years. They do dabble into some 2-high stuff, and they'll play a cover 2 look here and there or some man stuff. Not a ton. But you can see, them trying to maybe bracket or keep one guy over the top of Hopkins to eliminate, the big play. With Kyler Murray, the biggest thing is really his accuracy. He's really been inconsistent throughout the year, just hitting open receivers. He's been great out of structure and making plays with his legs. I think that's where he thrives the most. Kind of the same way that Russell Wilson. Obviously Russell Wilson is out of his mind inside the pocket and outside the pocket. But I think Kyler Murray, keeping him within the pocket and maybe sending pressure from different angles where he can't anticipate it, to force the ball out quickly and force him to be accurate and tighten the windows.
All right, before we move on to the next game, I want to ask Jeff, John, and you, Derek, about Russell Wilson's long distance accuracy. I mean, have you ever seen someone who can throw 40 yards more on a dime and drop it in as well as Russell Wilson can? He is,
Jeff Blake.
Throwing the ball.
Jeff Blake. Remember Jeff Blake out of East Carolina?
I remember Jeff Blake.
Best deep ball in football. Might have missed the 12-yard slant, but anything from 30 yards over, Jeff Blake was perfect at. But you're right.
Outside of Jeff Blake. No, just
the great Jeff Blake. East Carolina, by the way, where you got to throw your wide receivers open. I think we're onto something here. But no, I'm sorry to take over that for a minute, but no, he's as good a deep ball thrower as there is in the NFL right now. Yes, I would agree with that, 100%.
I would agree.
Yeah, I agree. There's no doubt about it.
All right, agree as well.
I think some of it too has to do with his mechanics as well. The way that he throws, obviously, he has a baseball background, so he does have he can throw the ball a good distance. But I think if you look at his mechanics and you see, some quarterbacks, they want to really lift that upfield shoulder to get a higher trajectory. When you watch him throw a deep ball, his shoulders really stay level. And really his launch point from his arm is he just lets go of the ball at a higher point. He has such a high release that he doesn't necessarily need to maybe dip the back shoulder to get a higher trajectory. It's something really simple. I even tried to dabble with it when I was playing. I'm obviously not Russell Wilson, but I mean, you can even see like the play when they scored on the touchdown wheel route to the tight end. It was man coverage, and Wilson just dropped it right over the linebacker's head, and I mean, it was like schoolyard ball. It was such a beautiful ball. It was well timed, and it couldn't have been placed any better.
So the next game we're going to preview are two undefeated teams, two 5-0 teams, guys. Come on now, this is pretty fun. Pittsburgh, the road team, at Tennessee. I've been dismissing Tennessee all year. Most people dismissed Pittsburgh coming into the year. So this is the underachiever game or the chip on your shoulder game. Both teams have had a lot to prove coming into the season. Who has the advantage here, Derek?
Well, I think that the Steelers front has the advantage here. I think that they can get to Ryan Tannehill, and if they can stop Derrick Henry before Derrick Henry gets to that second level, they've been really, really good against the run. Especially against a team like Cleveland with a very good running back and a very good offensive line. Obviously, Derrick Henry is a different animal. I've never seen anybody that big move like that. I saw it in person when he was coming out of college at Tom Shaw over at Disney when I had the chance to work with him, and I couldn't believe how just nimble his feet were for a guy that was 6'4" and was able to run and move. And I had never seen – I was like, this guy's an alien. You can't convince me anything else. But I think the Steelers do. But the biggest question mark for the Steelers is very similar to one that they had a couple years ago with the loss of Devin Bush. Devin Bush was really the key of that defense. Everybody wants to point to Minkah Fitzpatrick on the back end, who has kind of been the staple. But really the loss of Devin Bush tearing the ACL is about as big of a loss as you can have since really Ryan Shazier. And then they spent about 3 years trying to find, or 2 years, I believe, trying to find a replacement for Ryan Shazier. They do have Vince Williams and Robert Spillane. Robert Spillane was, I think, in his second year out of Western Michigan, I want to say. Stylistically, he is very similar to Devin Bush. They're obviously not the same player, or else he wouldn't have been at Western Michigan, and people would have heard of Robert Spillane. But he does play better in the pass game. Vince Williams is your old school two-down linebacker that is going to stop the run, going to create tackles for a loss, and he's a real head basher. In a lot of the cases, they would take him off the field on third downs and bring in a nickel package. Well, with Tennessee, the problem is that Tennessee stays in a lot of 12 personnel and what we call 21 personnel, where they have two backs and one tight end, or one running back and two tight ends. So really that forces the Steelers to stay in their base defense, and they can't get another nickel guy on the field. And when they get the nickel guy on the field is when they like to bring pressure with Mike Hilton off the edge. And you see some of those splash plays with Hilton coming off the edge, disrupting the boot plays and those kinds of things. What does Tennessee like to do? Play action and boot plays. So you could see the chess match within the chess match of the different personnel packages and how the Steelers might want to play the Titans. The Titans, like I said, like we talked about the other week, they don't do anything over the top creative. In fact, they had a big play last week versus Houston. That was the 3-by-1 set, and they ran basically a switch vertical concept, something that they ran in the last 3 games in the postseason that they actually all scored on in the red zone last year. They hit this one to a tight end just out of a slightly different look with a motion. But it's all the same play. It's all the same concept. It's just giving it a different wrinkle.
Well, I guess we could argue. We don't even have to argue on this show that if Western Michigan plays Miami of Ohio in a game, Derik and Mark will not get together to watch it, as they have now disparaged those 2 fine universities. Go Broncos. All joking aside, though, Tennessee, it is a bit old school. To your point, Derrick Henry is a flippin' beast. We've had so many NFL players that we've interviewed over the years, Derik, who have said you can almost guarantee the outcome of a football game if you watch the first 2 to 3 possessions offensively for each team. And if the offensive line's getting a push up front, that team's going to have success. Defensive line's getting push up front, that team's going to have success. My question to you, though, is about the Titans defense. The Titans defense against Ben Roethlisberger and this Steeler offense. The Steelers are nowhere near as good at running the football as Tennessee is. Nobody's better at extending a play than Big Ben. You have to give Tannehill credit too. Tannehill and Roethlisberger's not turning the football over. Roethlisberger, I think, 1 interception this year. What Tennessee's defense, well coached, Mike Vrabel, very, very smart guy. What do they have to do to beat this Steeler offense?
Well, I think you got to really shut down the outside, the perimeter throws, the deep ball throws to Chase Claypool and James Washington. Those have been their kind of home run hitters. They're really not afraid to take shots with them. You could see a lot of too high structures to play over the top of those, some quarters and some what we call cover 4 or some cover 2 type stuff to play over the top and really take away that concept. We talked about last week that they ran invert 2 and they ended up getting burned on it. So I'm going to take a wild guess that you're not going to probably see that this week. So that's really, I think, where you got to really start. You really got to shut down the perimeter deep ball throws. Obviously, James Conner has been their battering ram this entire year. Some interesting thought here from this film study. They really have up their jet motions. Remember, we talked about jet motions earlier in the year, really with an uptick across the league. The Steelers have really incorporated the jet motion stuff. You could see it on the goal line where they hand to Chase Claypool and he scores from, 3 yards out, just gets to the edge fast and outruns everybody. But they're using it primarily on run plays. Really, you get more of a static look when it's a pass play. And I believe some of that is to do with Roethlisberger not being completely comfortable with the jet motion, because when you get a jet motion, whether it's going from 2-by-2 to 3-by-1 or vice versa, really a defense will change its call and its base structure essentially to adjust to what you are doing offensively. So that might be something that Ben is not completely used to, but I could see that there be an uptick in the pass game and off of their play action with the jet motion. Another interesting note, their quarterback coach is now Matt Canada, who they brought from he was at the University of Pittsburgh, who they obviously share a facility with. He kind of got ran out of LSU, and he's been kind of everywhere else, and his staple thing was pre-snap motions and kind of displacing linebackers and getting really an angle or a spot on the field that he wants open using some of those things. So you could see maybe later in the year, as the year progresses, a little bit of an uptick in some of those jet motions and things of that nature.
The 3rd greatest football team of all time, according to most experts. 3rd greatest football team of all time in terms of an individual season were the 1978 Steelers.
Oh, I thought you were going to say this one.
They're the only other Steelers team to start 5-0. It's a pretty good stat.
And did you see Lenny Rowe's stat? And Lenny has all of this stuff. Is that the last 4 years, including this year's week 6 through 8, the Steelers have been 9-1 under Mike Tomlin. Yeah. That is just where they find their sweet spot. for whatever reason. Now, much of it may have to do with the fact that they're playing their own division at that point in time, and sometimes you can feast on Cleveland and Cincinnati.
The schedule hasn't been that difficult. Right. There's no doubt about it. But I mean, a lot of people are saying they're the best team in the AFC North right now, which is saying a lot, considering that the Ravens were, by the way, 14-2.
Like I said, it's going to be very, very interesting with the loss of Devin Bush and how it impacts them, and if it kind of tanks their season like the loss of Ryan Shazier loss. That's, like I said, that middle linebacker spot. I mean, it's almost like, playing at Notre Dame or playing, shortstop for the Yankees. It's a middle linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's a keynote position. So
Chicago Bears as well.
I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee tries to take advantage of that with some play actions and some intermediate play actions to really move those linebackers and hit some, maybe some short dig routes or things like that those linebackers typically aren't used to. Getting them into their base personnel, keeping Vince Williams and Robert Spillane on the field, not letting them get into a nickel, and then running play action out of their base stuff.
It's a great football game. It is a great football game. Because I just don't – even with Pittsburgh, and I think Pittsburgh's going to be favored, and I would say if I had to bet on it, I would take Pittsburgh. But I don't think – I'm just not going to sleep on the Titans anymore. They're just too well coached. They're doing – I think, Derek, maybe – I don't know if you agree with this. They're just doing that Belichick thing where they do the little things very, very well, and their attention to detail is excellent.
No, I agree. One of the other last note here is that with the Devin Bush loss, on the flip side, you have the loss of Taylor Lewan, their left tackle. So that is a very, very key injury on that offensive line. So it'll be interesting how they try and, combat that Steelers pass rush with Watt, Dupree, and Tuitt and Hayward, and how maybe the Steelers can dial up some pressure on a newer left tackle.
Yeah, again, I think that left tackle going down is probably the more significant injury, if you ask me. And it bears repeating, the only other Steeler team starting 5-0 were the 1978 Steelers, regarded by many as the third greatest individual season team in NFL history. All right.
So it's the 91 Washington football team would be number one. Who's number two in that?
I would say the 89 49ers.
Okay, fair enough. We'll stay with that. That's our list.
85 Bears, after further review, 85 Bears are 14th.
Very nice. With that limited offense, with that limited passing offense,
very benign offense. They just got lucky that Jim McMahon happened to be, in a good mood most of those games.
And frankly, let's face it, 7 other people, the 4 of us against that 85 New England Patriot team with Derik at quarterback and me with my 56-year-old wide receiver skills and Mark's deceptive speed, we'd have kept it close. I think
we would have kept it close. And that's why it's inexplicable that the Dan Marino-led Dolphins, when he's 24 years old, couldn't beat him in the championship game in Miami. Enough said about that. Our last game involves a team that won their last game to save their season against a team that needs to win this game to save their season. The 49ers visit New England. How do you see this one shaking out, Derek? A lot of people liking the Niners, and I don't know about that.
Well, yeah, let's start with the Niners. They're a very injury-riddled team. If there's anybody that's been bit by the injury bug other than Philadelphia, which I've never seen anything like that for
it's horrible.
4 years in Philadelphia, the 49ers are definitely one. They have such a depleted front four, even with the loss of, Richard Sherman getting hurt and then Garoppolo getting hurt. And then Morstead is hurt as well this week too. So they're extremely depleted everywhere. Now, on the flip side, you do have one of the most creative and dynamic play callers in the NFL with Kyle Shanahan and some of the just crazy, more interesting stuff that he comes up with every week. I mean, I love watching some of his tape, and I start writing it down. I want to give it to our offensive coordinator. Like, hey, can we run this? Can we run this? Can we run this? I really like it. So, like I said, I mean, some of the stuff they're doing offensively is so creative, especially with Deebo Samuel, who I loved coming out of the draft. He's such a dynamic player. They have a bunch of hybrid players with Juszczyk and Kittle and Deebo Samuel. So they're actually using Deebo Samuel in the run game as well, with George Kittle being able to block as well as he does. So what they're doing is Ted Wynn of The Athletic had a great piece on it. They call it the Deadpool package, where they disguise essentially Deebo Samuel as he's a receiver. So to the defense, personnel-wise, it looks like 11 personnel. So that's one running back, one tight end. But in actuality, it's really 21 personnel. So they're running, which is 2 running backs, 1 tight end. So they're running 2 back run plays out of 11 personnel with some of the jet motion stuff. So they'll bring Samuel in motion, just quick flip him the ball, and they'll run outside zone. So you're getting a defense that's not in the right personnel, and Deebo Samuel, when he has the ball in his hand, really runs like a running back. He is a very stout person. He runs. He's a physical runner, and then obviously he can really make great routes and catch the ball extremely well. So I think that they're such a dynamic offense. So like they'll have that play where they'll run the outside zone, fake the outside zone, and then they'll hit Kittle on a basic, or what we call it. It's a basic route, but it's a dig route. Just for common, I guess, vocabulary. But some of the stuff, like I said, they scheme it up. It looks different, but it's really the same play. And it's really like the Sean McVay offense, but like on steroids.
Yeah, and it reminds me, it's like he's watched the Houston Veer or some of these wing T stuff, and he's just taken things out of that as well to move guys around. The play of Jimmy Garoppolo is it's been a bit inconsistent. Injury certainly a part of that. When you watch him, tell us what you see, because, boy, I tell you, it's hard to find middle ground with people with this guy. There are people who think we haven't reached the ceiling yet. He's so good. And then there are people who are encouraging them to give up on him. What are you seeing from Jimmy Garoppolo? Strengths and weaknesses, Derik?
Well, I think Jimmy G is really a scheme-based quarterback. He really fits what Kyle wants to do. I think for the most part, he struggles really it's similar to like a Jared Goff, where you don't want to get in behind the sticks and force him to get in the gun and take a 3-step drop and make a full field read. I think he's better off of play action and the boot action, which is what led them to the Super Bowl. And really, their run game has been what the most dominant thing was. What did he do to throw the ball 4 times in the NFC Championship game? Is like the game was from 1944. So I think that's where he thrives, where the reads are defined for him. I don't think that he is at his best when they go 5 wide and they try to throw the ball around the field. Doesn't have, overall great athleticism. He's mobile enough. But I think in this league nowadays, you kind of have to have both. You got to have the 1A and the 1B. You got to have being able to throw from the pocket, and really 1B is to make that the second reaction plays that you're seeing by so many of these quarterbacks nowadays. And I think a little bit, it's kind of a bold statement, but I think that Jimmy Garoppolo is kind of holding back this offense with some of the weapons that they have. Because, like I said, there's so many hybrids in the way that Kyle Shanahan schemed things up. It's a matchup nightmare for defenses, because you got to figure out how are we going to play George Kittle, because sometimes he's a receiver, sometimes he's a blocker. Sometimes Juszczyk as a tight end, sometimes he's a running back, sometimes he's a receiver. Deebo Samuel, same as thing. So really, I think Garoppolo is best when he is working in a rhythm. The reads are defined. He's throwing off of his 3rd or 5th step, and he's getting the ball out quickly. The longer he holds on to the ball, the more trouble will come into play.
So let's talk about New England and this must win that everyone is saying that they have to have. Cam Newton, who is up and down, as he often is, even in his best years. Where are they right now? They're kind of offensively, they're not the 49ers, almost the opposite of the 49ers. They're kind of slow and plodding, and I know they're relying a lot on Cam's legs. But Bill Belichick is Bill Belichick. The Patriots are the Patriots. I don't think anyone's ready to jump off that bandwagon until the bandwagon literally has no more wheels left. Where are you on this team right now? And can they take advantage of a depleted 49er defense that inexplicably is 5th in the league still? They played the Giants and the Jets, so maybe that helps. But can they take advantage of that? Can they put pressure on Jimmy G and interrupt that rhythm that you're talking about? What do they need to do?
Well, let's start defensively. Schematically, New England is a man team. They love to play man coverage. The different types of man coverage they play are varied. They'll play some robber stuff. They'll play some other schemes where they'll pass off, especially to stop some of the crossing routes that Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers and a lot of teams nowadays are trying to run, where they pass off crossers and they really trap the quarterback and throwing into double coverage a lot. It looks like, oh my gosh, the quarterback threw into double coverage. What is he looking at? Really, they'll trap them playing man coverage and passing stuff off. So the communication on the back end is really key on that. You could see them come out in something very similar to what they did to the Rams actually in 2019 in the Super Bowl, where they came out in the 5-1 or the 6-1 structure. And really the point of that is to create one-on-one blocks. The Niners run game is built around outside zone and wide zone the same way that the Rams is. So creating those one-on-one blocks is not allowing those guards and those double teams to work up to the second level to open up some gaps for linebackers is really, I think, what New England might try and do. Sending pressure from different spots to get Jimmy Garoppolo and off his spot and out of rhythm would probably be their game plan going into this. I think offensively, really they took a step back. They obviously had, Cam Newton not play against Kansas City because of coronavirus. He kind of resorted back to the Cam Newton that we saw the last few years in Carolina, where his mechanics were really all over the place. Did not look comfortable. They looked out of sync. A lot of that has to do with not practicing. You can't get timing over Zoom. So I think that that's probably their biggest struggle. They're still trying to figure out who they are offensively, I think. Obviously they're varied in the run game and the running backs that they use. I think they got about 14 running backs. They are very limited on the perimeter, still waiting for N'Keal Harry to pop, their first-round pick from a couple years ago. Edelman has had some getting separation issues and also some drop issues. So, like I said, still trying to figure out who they are, but I think right now they're going to lean on Cam Newton in the run game, trying to just take the air out of the game. No pun intended.
Mark, I don't know if you wanted to cover any more on that game, but we did have some breaking news we saw in the feed, and also I just checked here on the phone concerning Antonio Brown. So I want to get Derik's opinion on this. Obviously, there had been talk about Seattle. There was a great deal of interest in Seattle. Russell Wilson came out and talked about him, but now apparently the Buccaneers are high on the list. So just for you, Derik, where do you see him? Out off the field stuff, let's take the Antonio Brown on the field, because there are few receivers who are any better. Maybe Hopkins, one or two other guys. But where is the fit best for you in that situation, Tampa or Seattle?
Well, the Tampa situation is extremely interesting because of the history between him and Bruce Arians. They did not get along in Pittsburgh early in Antonio Brown's career, when they also had, that was a pretty crowded receiver room. They had Emmanuel Sanders and Mike Wallace, and I'm not sure if Hines Ward was still there. I don't think he was, but he might have been. Extremely crowded receiver room in Pittsburgh. They obviously, bumped heads. Bruce Arians said that he would not sign him earlier in the offseason. So is that official? Did they actually sign him?
No, they haven't signed him. He's flying to Tampa actually for a meeting, and Seattle is in the mix. So, I mean, again, and take everything with a grain of salt, but apparently it's down to Seattle or Tampa Bay, at least for right now. And and as I said, the reports are that he's actually flying to Tampa to meet with them.
Well, I'm going to be biased because my Super Bowl pick was Seattle, so I'd like to see him go to Seattle, and I have in fantasy, so that would be double points. So I actually think that the fit would probably be Seattle. He's worked with Russell Wilson throughout the offseason. Russell Wilson has been a huge fan of his and trying to get that front office to sign him. Really, the PR nightmare is for the front office to figure. I think that's kind of Russell Wilson's. He's like, hey, I just want to throw touchdowns. So that could be a pretty dynamic receiving core and give a lot of secondaries issues with not only Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and then you add Antonio Brown, who can really, he's so varied in the things that he does. And the things that he does well, you could put him in the slot, you could put him outside. He's a really dynamic player. He's an extremely good route runner. And I think that the difference between Russell Wilson and Tom Brady, obviously he had, a brief stint with Tom Brady, is let's go back to the Steelers and what that kind of dynamic was with Roethlisberger. Antonio Brown's, a lot of his big plays were big plays, structure plays, that they were on the same page, that they were able to look at each other, that if Ben scrambled right, Antonio Brown might cut to the sideline and then get upfield. What does Russell Wilson do really well? Second reaction plays. So I think that could be, so explosive, and that would give teams so much of a headache because you really have to prepare for two plays, the actual play and then the out of structure play.
It's so very interesting. And Tom Brady's standing over there going, I got Randy Moss for a while, but outside of that, please give me an all-pro wide receiver. I would love that.
Now I would say Mike Evans is close to that, but in a way, as a 49er fan, I'm rooting for the Bucs to get him just so that Seattle doesn't get him. I don't really care if he helps the Bucs or not, but it would be nice to keep him away from Seattle. All right, that's all good stuff, Derik. It's remarkable. It's fun. Thank you for all your insight.
Great stuff, man.
And we look forward to you next week. I mean, I kind of want to make this a segment on Fridays on football, fabulous fun, family.
Please stop saying that.
Fridays, we get you breaking down a few games. Before we let you go, though, we're going to put you on the spot, obviously. You've done all this homework. You've done all this work. You've done all this prep. You make John and I look like even bigger bums than we normally are. And we need predictions on all three games from you.
Okay. What are the spreads?
Hold on. I got that. Let's start with Seattle, Arizona. Seattle's a 3.5-point favorite.
Ooh. I think I'm going to take Seattle. I think Seattle wins it like 28-24.
Ooh, okay. Barely beating the spread.
Yep.
All right. New England is a 2-point favorite. It's at New England on San Francisco.
I think New England gets back on track.
All right. And what was the other one we jumped on?
Steelers.
Where's Pittsburgh?
I don't think they're favorite. I think Tennessee's favorite.
They're like a 3-point underdog, which is insane to me. I'm taking Pittsburgh.
It's down to 1. It's a 1 point.
Yeah. Pittsburgh.
So you're taking Pittsburgh. You're taking Pittsburgh. You're taking New England, the home team, and you're taking a questionable road favorite in Seattle,
which is going against like everything that my dad has ever said is never bet on the Steelers because they will always disappoint you. So I'm going against his advice, and he'll probably be calling me and going, "Hey, I told you, don't bet on that."
Except you got Lenny in your corner. You got Lenny in your corner. I love your dad. You know that. Close personal friend of mine. I'm going to take Lenny on betting on the Steelers always.
As will I.
Always.
Week 6 through 8, they're gold. And by the way, for the third time, the only other Steelers team to start 5-0 were the 1978 Pittsburgh Steelers, regarded as the third best football team of all time. Derik,
mark out on Wikipedia.
Derik Abbott, thank you very, very much. Great work out of you, and we'll see you next week. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Derik.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Outstanding. All right, so that took up almost an hour, which I'm very happy about.
That's okay, because I don't really have many. I don't really have too many opinions on tonight's most pivotal World Series game ever.
Well, it's Walker Buehler and Charlie Morton.
Yeah,
it's a great matchup. It's a great pitching matchup. I am on record for saying that they were going to sweep, and I'm wrong. You were on record saying they could win Game 2, and they did. And I'm very happy that it's a series at this point in time. To your point, Johnny, last episode, you don't want to get them too ahead. What was the comparison? You don't want to get them too much of a lead, otherwise. Oh, it's Secretariat.
War Admiral. It's War Admiral and Seabiscuit. You can't let that big monster shake loose. We'll never catch him. So you gotta stay within him. That was a great game that played out the way that I think Tampa would have liked for it to play out. The main thing in that game was Brandon Lau getting off the Schneike because he had been really, really cold. And if his bat has awakened, that's going to help because they've struggled with runners on base. It's been a lot of one-run home runs for Tampa in their scoring. So if Lau has gotten off the Schneike and will stay there, Arozarena hitting well. I think they can push this series deeper than I know you do because I know now you're saying Dodgers in 5.
Well, I said 6 initially, and it's probably going to be that
sweep.
I did. I moved to a sweep after that. I think I want to ask you this, John, because you have very specific feelings about this, very strong feelings about this.
Me?
Yes, you do. And
Okay.
have you noticed over the last 3 years? I mean, I think everyone's talked about it, that it's either a strikeout or a home run. That you want, and Andrew Friedman of the Dodgers, who was previously running the Rays, understands, and he identifies these huge, tall pitchers who can strike out people. And he gets these hitters who play great defense and can hit home runs. And if you look at the Dodgers and how they beat the Braves, and you look at how they won Game 1, and you look at all the teams out there, it's like Earl Weaver was a prophet.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. It's the 3-run home run,
sure,
which will win you the game, and that's what seems to happen.
I think I even mentioned
vast majority of these runs are scored with home runs.
I think I even mentioned it that I believe it was John Smoltz doing one of the series and discussing how in the past, the way he learned baseball coming up, the way he was trained, this would be the time where you drop down a bunt. This would be the hit and run time. And he said, you just don't see it anymore. It's just not there. And he spent, and I don't remember which game it was. I think it might have been divisional series that he was doing, but he just kept laying down the time and said he was going to do it. He pointed out the times when in the past, this would be what you did. This was 101 with what managers did. And to your point, and he said it too, he said, now it's all about home runs. It's all about the power game.
Well, because I do think it's the power game with the pitchers too. That's the thing.
I do think it's interesting though. I do think it's interesting though. We talked about this last time. Even with all of that, we have two of the best defensive teams in baseball in the World Series.
And I like that in the end, defense won it for the Los Angeles Dodgers. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Let's go back to Progressive real quick, even though Joe Connolly got it immediately.
On the second set of clues.
Okay. Joe, let us know. Was it the second set that inadvertently was presented to you that helped you? But let's start here. I played 10 plus years. Career numbers, 2,700 plus completions, 30,000 plus yards. 150 plus touchdowns, led the league in completion percentage once. All 4 years, his college team finished in the top 10.
That threw me.
I figured it would.
That really threw me.
Would. Won a national championship. I think that would throw people as well. NFL Walter Payton Man of the Year. Played with 4 head coaches. I thought that might throw some people. 6-time Pro Bowler. Let's just continue. At this point. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah, let's just. We've already seen these.
Playoff numbers, very good, obviously. 3,700 plus yards, 20 plus touchdowns, first round draft pick, number 1 overall, actually. Attended 2 colleges and won multiple Super Bowls.
I got it on that one.
Sure. It is the great, the Hall of Famer, as a broadcaster and as a football player, Troy Aikman. And Joe got it right away.
The national championship was as a backup quarterback at Oklahoma, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. And I know he played a little that season and then ended up at UCLA. What really threw me there was the fact that UCLA finished in the top 10 in any year since Gary Beeben. I'm so surprised that that's the case. And you were there with Beeben, right? Late 60s? No. That's when you were there, in the late 60s? Weren't you?
I was not there with Gary Beeben. I was there
flipping off the president of the university out there protesting with Lou Alcindor.
Speaking of protesting, have you seen the trial of the Chicago 7?
I have not yet seen that, no.
The heck, man?
I just haven't had a chance. I have not had the opportunity. You realize there's sporting events that are on, and we nominally do a sports talk podcast.
I understand we nominally do a sports podcast, but you have time to see this, Johnny.
I don't. We're binge watching Fargo. You're binge watching Fargo.
That's fine. I hear that this
outstanding.
Season, 4th season is outstanding.
We're on season 2. We just got through season 1, binge watching season 2.
Fair enough. All right. No, UCLA under Terry Donahue in the 80s were pretty good. They were just good enough to lose. They were that team. They were that team that, finished 6th, finished 9th, won a bowl game. And so people thought, wow, what a team.
One Rose Bowl and lost it, maybe, that sort of thing.
It's probably that kind of thing. Right. All right. There it is. Troy Aikman and Terry Donahue. I thought that would really throw some people, and I'm not sure what Joe Connolly did. It's all about the stars, what he said. Okay, so what Joe Connolly also says is that Washington is going to end up with the first pick.
Yep, and they're going to waste it like they did on Haskins.
Trevor Lawrence.
But well, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. It's what's going to happen. He'll spend 4 years in the league, and then then it's going to be Ryan Leaf. He's going to Ryan Leaf the rest of his life away. I'm telling you right now.
Ryan Leaf.
Yep. Yeah, he's going to be, he's going to be Dennis Quaid and everybody's All-American. He'll be, bloated and smoking at some sort of alumni banquet, just, shoving steamship round into a bag so he can eat the next night, and just praying for the next time the Clemson the alumni association has something so he can eat. I'm telling you, it's what's going to happen, and it's perfect if he's a Washington football guy.
All right, before we wrap this baby up,
locks, shocks, brother.
You were on record, by the way. You were on record for this Trevor Lawrence bus thing. Over and over and over. You were on record for this thing. All right. So give me your locks and shocks, Johnny.
My lock for this, because I spent a lot of time on my shocks because I've just been really, really bad. But my lock for this weekend is going to be Buffalo, even at 12 points. I think they feel like they've underperformed a little bit over a couple of weeks. I think the Jets are, every minute creeps closer to Adam Gase's firing. Joe Flacco looked old and tired and confused. I'm not sure if Darnold's coming back. I'm not sure if it's a positive if Darnold comes back. I think it speaks more to the Jets. And I think Buffalo might be a little bit better than we've seen them over the last couple of weeks. I think maybe a little bit of their being exposed. I think we might have been a little too high on them in the beginning, but I think they really, really bounced back, and I think they handled the Jets pretty easily. My shock, actually, is I think Green Bay's going to struggle at Houston, and I think Houston's going to win the game.
Wow. How come?
Yeah. I think, again, we were overvaluing Green Bay a bit.
Well, I do agree with that. There's no doubt.
I do think that I may be
overreacted.
I may be overreacted to that statistic about Aaron Rodgers not ever coming from behind. That that when that team falls behind, and in Houston, and God knows it's Texas, they'll probably fill the dump maskless. Only allowing people who sneeze in the stadium. I believe it is. It's sneezing day at Reliant Stadium. Only people who are sneezing are allowed. So there's going to be a lot of people there. I just have this sneaky suspicion it's my questionable road favorite. And I think what's going to happen, Mark?
Sunday. It's Fossil Fuel Sunday for the.
It's fossil fuel. Bring your whatever solar powered panel, and we'll destroy it.
We'll destroy it, or a wind turbine. We'll destroy it. It'll be like the Bill Veeck saving birds, disco night,
saving birds all over the world.
Clean energy demolition. It should be a lot of fun.
But that's it. I really think, and then I think we're going to overreact to Green Bay, and then I think they'll bounce back and win a couple. I think it's that type of season, Mark.
All right.
And just looking at with the lack of practice and what's going on, I think that's the season right there.
I almost went with my shock, your Washington football team over Dallas, and then I studied the line. It's
a pick 'em.
One.
It's a pick 'em now. It's to a pick 'em now.
That is unbelievable to me. So I stayed away from that. And I'm going to go with what the games we talked about. Seattle's a lock.
Okay.
Seattle's an absolute lock. And the Steelers are the shock because they're still the underdog right now.
Yeah. I thought you might go with Tampa Bay
as the shock.
Yeah, a little bit. 3.5 point favorite at Las Vegas, and the Raiders have been. There have been weeks where the Raiders have looked awfully good, and
Tampa hasn't shown a lot of consistency yet. So I did flirt with that. But I'm going to go with the Steelers. I'm going to go with Lenny. I'm going to go with the analysis of Derik. And I'm going to actually continue with the trend I've had about dissing Tennessee this entire year. Steelers in the shock. Seahawks, who are the class of the NFC, if you ask me.
By the way, Lenny
agreeing
with me. Lenny agreeing with me. that the Texans are going to beat Green Bay.
Really?
And Joe Connolly saying that Cincinnati will beat Cleveland would not surprise me terribly. Would not at all. I think the thing with Cleveland right now is they need to find a better offensive identity. And I think that's something that Derik was saying about Jimmy G is I think they need Baker Mayfield in more of a rhythmic offense than they do Baker Mayfield. I know he loves to work out a schedule, but I think in the NFL at this point, I don't think that that's working for him very well. And I think he has a tendency to force things when he's working off schedule a little bit. So Cincinnati upsetting Cleveland, even though on paper Cleveland looks like a much better team, that would not shock me in any way.
All right. So what do you think about tonight? I have two questions for you. What do you think about tonight?
Mm-hmm.
That's the first question.
I
want you to answer that first.
I think Dodgers win. All
right. And then what's your plan for college football Saturday tomorrow? Having a beautiful day, watching college football. What are your plans? What are your plans for college football Saturday, Johnny?
Well, for at least a couple of hours, I'm going to be doing reshoots for Spring Awakening, the online streaming play that
good for you having a gig. Good for you having a paying gig. That's outstanding.
I'm doing it for free. It's gone on for weeks. But you know what? It's a benefit for this Theater South that my friend owns and runs.
Who we both love very much.
Yeah, we love Hillary. They have great programs for kids. Of all ages, young kids into high school. I mean, she's had some of her students go on to college and had some success in theater as well. So I'm doing it as a nice thing. It's just I thought I had tomorrow off. I thought I was done. We went into the theater last night and we filmed the bows for the damn thing, and that should mean that it's over. But right. I have to do a reshoot of I think 5 scenes. They're very short. But they do require that I change wardrobe every time. And it's awfully effortful, Mark. And on a Saturday particularly. My feelings about effort.
Particularly on a Saturday.
I'm Homer Simpson.
When you were filled with whiskey and herb.
Right. What? Good Lord.
Whiskey and herb. And the thing about you, John Pelkey, is that it happened. After further review, got you out of your dark mood. You talked about the grand picture, the overall picture of helping out a theater that does so much for its community. And there you are. You have it.
This is still where my mood is right here. This is
I don't think so.
I'm still Bruce Dern. I'm still Bruce Dern. I've got
it's lightened up just a bit.
If I could find my dress blues, can you play Out of Time by the Rolling Stones? And can we just take this where it belongs? No, this has got me in a better mood. It was great talking football with Derik. I did not realize that it was as great a week. Hold on, I got to say. That even disturbs me. I didn't realize it was such a good week in the NFL.
Yeah.
Because they haven't all been really great weeks. And this is finally one where maybe we're going to learn more about these teams. I just think the only thing consistent this year has been a lot of inconsistency.
Yeah.
I'll really be interested, though. I do
with
have
the
to tell
exception
you.
of Tennessee, Pittsburgh, Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, there are a few teams that are the exceptions to the rule, but I mean, I even think good teams have had really off weeks, more than we've seen before. I'm sure this has a lot to do with the lack of practice. I'm also just really, really interested to see Arizona because certainly the Cowboys gave them the ball 4 times, and there were some issues there. But
the Giants against the Cowboys were up 17-3. I don't think it's indicative of where the Cardinals are, but I understand what you're talking about. To your point, John, you brought up the fact that Kyler Murray was 9 of 24.
9 of 24. Yeah,
and he beat him by what, 30 points?
38-10, yeah, almost 30 points. So I'm just real interested. That's a team that to me that's really, really continually interesting to watch. And I think Kyler Murray and Russell Wilson, you've got the best baseball players in any matchup this year because Russell Wilson was also drafted into Major League Baseball, and Kyler Murray could have been playing for the A's in the playoffs this year if he decided to do that. Big Ten football coming up this weekend, and you and I talked about it. Not a huge weekend for matchups, but that Michigan-Minnesota matchup to me, and that'll be tomorrow night. You and I are actually hanging out tomorrow night. We're going to see a theatrical thing downtown Orlando. I'm going to warn you, Mark, and listeners of After Further Review, this 1 in 3 chance this is our final show, because apparently, as we follow them around, like 3 to 4 miles. So the fact that we're going to do that, there's better than 1 in 3 chance one of us is going to have a stroke or a coronary.
One of us expires. One of us expires during the course of that walk.
Maybe both. What's the over-under on both of us passing away at some point during the show? And here's the other question. If I did pass away, if we were doing it and all of a sudden, clutch my chest, the Widowmaker, I drop to the ground, whatever.
You're dead before you hit the ground, right?
Are you? Did you watch the rest of the show? I mean, you can't help me. Do you just basically make a call to Jody? Because I'm thinking that's what you probably would do. Just hey, Joe. Hi. Yeah. No, it's good. Joe. No, I'm enjoying it. No, yeah.
And there's a great moment. I really need to follow this one character to see what happens next. I mean, I really need to see what happens next, Jody. I mean, your husband's dead. What could I possibly do?
Hey, Jody, can you come get the body? Because we got to go down to the next stop. David Lowe is so good in this, though. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to see from you.
I can see that.
Probably, and me, given my levels of observation and the deep connections I make with people, I'm probably at the end of the show before I realize you're not there anymore. I don't even know when you've gone.
That's true. But if that happened to you, Johnny, if you were dead before you hit the ground, that would prove the existence of a benevolent God, because you have said forever that it'll be a slow death. You will be lonely in a gutter, curled up in the fetal position for weeks, just slowly ebbing away like Edgar Allan Poe. And if you were to die that way, even that at the relatively young age of 55, 56, that would be great fortune for you in a lot of ways. Would you not agree?
It's probably about the best that I could hope for.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's the best any of us could hope for.
All right. Well,
with that said, before we leave, the upset special, I do think watch Pittsburgh tomorrow against Notre Dame. Watch Pittsburgh against Notre Dame.
No, that's a really good call. And before we leave, too, I should let you know that Antonio Brown has signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Woo! I love it. I love it.
It's good. Boy, I tell you, another piece for that puzzle. It's going to be incredibly disappointing if they don't you think at this point in time, if they don't get to the conference championship, that there's going to be a huge level of disappointment down there? Because they're all in, man. They are all in.
I mean, they have to win at least one playoff game. I don't know about the conference championship, because remember, everyone, unless you get there's only one bye this year.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's probably going to be Seattle. And everyone has to play 2 games before they even get to the championship game. So if Tampa doesn't make the playoffs and win at least one playoff game, then I agree with you. Expecting the championship game from a team that hasn't sniffed anything for 20 years.
But with the GOAT, bringing in Antonio Brown. By the way, here's a quote from Brown after being signed by Tampa. When asked by a local reporter why he chose Tampa over Seattle, he said, and I quote, "That fucking 12th man." So there you go. I just thought maybe you'd appreciate that.
I would appreciate. I knew I liked Antonio Brown. His proclivities. Speak to me, if you will. All right. For Derik Abbott, for Jeff Taylor, for John Pelkey, I'm Mark Furr. You've been listening to After Further Review. Have a great weekend, everyone.